Okay, so Unit 5, Supply and Demand Notes. Um, this is the first unit where, as you may realize, if you've had some trouble up at this point, you may realize that as you get into this unit with supply and demand, that stuff becomes a little more multi-level thinking. It may become a little more difficult than what you're used to before. There is some straightforward stuff as far as the definitions, understanding what the basics of things are. But as we get into scenarios and how one thing affects another, you will see again that it is more multi-level thinking. So make sure you're prepared. Make sure that as we go through these first few sets of slides and really try to hammer down the basics of supply and demand, that you are getting this and understanding this, so that as we move into the scenarios further down the road and what changes what that change means, that you can have that understanding as we move forward. So with supply and demand, first thing we're going to look at is market equilibrium. What makes the market equal? What makes it balanced? If you look at this term here of equilibrium, when you look and hear the word equilibrium, most people think of balance. Oh, my equilibrium's off. And so that is the key thing with market equilibrium, is we're looking at a balance of supply and demand. So we come here to the standards, and in the standards, a couple key things. We're going to talk about the law of demand, which you have obviously covered in your vocab work, and the law of supply, also in your vocab work. And then we're going to talk about how prices determine production and distribution in the market economy. In other words, how things are made, who gets them. Going back to those three economic questions of what we're going to make, how we're going to make it, and who gets it once it's made. Define the law of supply and demand, describe the role of buyers and sellers. Buyers and sellers each have their own role in determining equilibrium price, or as you see here, the market clearing price. We'll discuss more of that in a second, which one goes with which as far as supply and demand goes. And then illustrate on a graph how supply and demand determine equilibrium price and quantity. So we're going to do some graphing today. This is, again, where economics gets a little more out of social studies, a little more into math. We'll be graphing and plotting some different points and things like that. Okay. Now, first off is demand. We always teach demand first because demand comes from the customer's perspective. This is what you guys as consumers can understand typically better and more easily. And so we always try to cover it first. And when it comes to demand, the biggest thing to understand is that demand is both the desire and the ability. And the ability is key. It's going to underline it there twice. The desire and the ability to buy something. You must be able to buy it, or you don't have the demand for it. If you're thinking about it in real terms, does a business care if you like their product? If I go to a Rolls-Royce dealership and I walk on the lot and start looking around their Rolls-Royces, and I'm in a pair of torn up Holy jeans and flip-flops and a t-shirt, are they really going to think that I just drove up in my 2010 Tahoe and that I'm in the market for a Rolls Royce? No. They are more than likely probably going to think I'm just looking, because what they're looking for is paying customers. They're looking for customers that like their product, desire their product, as we set up here, but also have the ability to buy it. If you don't have the ability to buy it, they're not going to make it for you. They're just wasting their time to produce that product if you're not going to actually buy it. So that's the key. You have to actually buy the product or have the ability to buy the product for them to be able to make the product to meet that. It's a meeting in the minds between the businesses and the consumers in that realm, because if you can't buy it, they're not going to make it. Okay, so that's the key thing to think about when we think about demand. Now, how do they know what the demand is? Because key thing here, quantity demanded at different prices. So different prices is key here. Okay, if you look over here on what we call the demand schedule, this is, again, straight out of your vocabulary. Demand schedule is just this list showing us two things. It's showing us the price for the pizza, different prices for the pizza. Okay, because again, not every pizza place charges the same thing. You get a pizza from Marco's up here at $15 a piece is completely different from the pizza you're going to get for $3 to $6 down here from Little Caesars. Okay, so at all these different prices that they can charge, there are different amounts or different quantities demanded. Okay, that's a big thing to think about. Quantity demanded, that's a key term that you're going to want to know and understand, is that quantity demanded. So the way we read this schedule is simple. At $15, if we price the pizza at $15, 8 million are going to be demanded. So in other words, 8 million pizzas should be bought if we price it, each pizza at $15. Now, if we price that pizza at $9, 20 million are going to be demanded. Okay. Now, first thing most people think of when they hear this is, well, then price them at $9 a pizza. You can get that many more bought, dropping the price that much. Why not do it? Well, it all depends. And you'll see more of that when we get to it later, when we put supply into it as well. Because as customers always want the price to be as low as possible. That's why you see more being demanded with a lower price here. Now, we'll see why that happens in the next couple of slides, but the key thing is this chart, this demand schedule, shows quantity demanded at different prices, and they then use this to draw the demand curve. So this is where we get into what I was just talking about with the math coming into play. We take all this information in this demand schedule here, and then we use it to plot out this demand curve. So when you see a demand curve, every time you see a demand curve, it's going to be shown as a line. Now it may curve a little bit. It may not be a straight line like you see here, but with a demand curve, all the key understanding is that the demand curve is simply nothing more than a line that connects all of these separate price points. Okay. Now, it was easy enough for you to read this demand schedule when I showed it to you, and everybody was quick and easy to see. Oh, too far. It was quick and easy to see. Sorry. Give me just a second. There we go. Now, it's quick and easy to see that this price gives us this much quantity demanded. Okay, everybody can read that chart quick and easy. Make sure that you can read the graph as well, because it's the same thing. Here at $15, we're going to have 8 million demanded. That's point A right there. There's your point A right there. Okay. And the same thing here. We got 12 and 14 at $12, 14 million are demanded. Because here's your price. At these prices, this is your quantity. Okay, down here on the bottom. So all you're doing is plotting those points where the price hits the demand curve. Then you simply go down and read what the quantity is to go along with that. And notice for each separate price that you have over here, you have a separate quantity demanded. For each price on the chart, you have a separate quantity demanded. Now, the key to that is understanding that we're just looking at individual prices and their effect on the quantity demanded. So we put this in a real world scenario. Say I run a pizza place and my normal pizza price is here at $12. Okay, I know that on a given night at $12 a piece, or this is per week, sorry, in a given week at $12, I will have 14 million pizzas demanded at all my stores. Well, what if one week, hey, it's March 14th, Pi Day. So for the week of Pi Day, I'm going to offer a special, and I'm going to offer my pizzas at half price. So I'll cut them down here at $6 a piece. Well, I have to plot and plan a little bit better, because according to this chart, if I drop my prices from 12 to $6, if I put those pizzas on sale for $6, then they're going to shift. That quantity demanded is going to shift down the curve here. And now I better be prepared for 26 million pizzas to be demanded, okay? Because of that price change. And I'm just laying the groundwork for some future stuff. And I want to make sure you understand that you see how you're reading this chart. And so I think we're pretty good. Now it tells you that right down here at the bottom, the market demand curve D, okay, shows the quantity of pizza demanded at various prices. Price and quantity demanded are inversely related. So what does that mean, inversely related? That comes up when we talk about what the law of demand is, okay? So again, amounts demanded at a specific price. Take a quick second and make sure that you can figure out what is the quantity demanded at each of these prices, at $15, at $9, and at $3. Because now you don't have the demand schedule there to tell you the answer so quickly and easily. So look at the chart, look at the demand curve to the right, and see if you can figure that out. I'll give you just a second on that. Okay. So as we look at it, little Dora the Explorer action for you. You know that I'll just sit here and wait. Simmons is going to show me what it is. And you're right. Here we go. So at $15, 15, we go across here. We cut down to here. A little off there, but you get the point. So $15 is 8. At $9, it's 20. And then at $3, we'll go across here. Here. And it's 32. Now again, Go Simmons. It's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. Pretty straightforward. You're probably right. Okay. But again, I want to hammer home these basics, because these basic things is what everything else builds off of. So if you know these, if you can figure these things out, you're better equipped moving forward with more complicated, multi-level thinking of the scenarios later on. Okay. Now, and of course, at any time while you're watching this, if you need to back it up as I remove these annotations, you can always back the video up, get down something that you need, follow along in your notes that you have with you as well. Now, law of demand. Law of demand, we said just a second ago. We talked about that. We just said a second ago that there is an inverse relationship. Not too far. There's an inverse relationship between price and quantity, okay? And this is what the law of demand tells us about this inverse relationship. And that inverse relationship is when price rises, the quantity demanded decreases. That means that when price rises, when the price goes up, the quantity demanded QD right there. Quantity demanded goes down. So we got the seesaw here for you. They have an inverse relationship. One goes up, the other one goes down. If you think about this in real life terms, okay, put a little text box in this, okay. In real life terms, consumers want low prices. Okay. Consumers want low prices. So because consumers want low prices, if this price goes high, consumers don't like that. So they're gonna shy away from it. They're gonna do the opposite of the price. They don't like that price, so they're gonna do the opposite of it. Okay. Now on the flip of that, if this price over here starts to go down, this quantity demand is going to go up. That's the way seesaw works. Consumers want those low prices, so they're going to get happy. They're going to be happy. They're going to get involved once that price starts to drop. Now, one quick way to remember this and how this plays out, and I'll back this up again to show you in just a second, but we put this in here. One thing to remember, let's do this in all caps for you. Okay, demand to the land. Okay, you need to remember that. That's a key thing, because with demand to the land, okay, with demand to the land, whenever you draw or see a demand curve, the demand curve is always going to be going down to the right. Let me show you what I mean by that. If we back this up a little bit, we go back here. Notice this demand curve is going down to the right. Okay, demand to the land. Because on the EOC, on the test, on a quiz, you may see a demand curve drawn out without this letter D here, or without the word demand listed on it. And you're going to need to know that is a demand curve. And the way you know it is because it goes demand to the land, always down to the right. Why does it do that? Because again, high price, low demand. Low price, high demand. Okay, high quantity demanded. So that is that natural flow, that natural move of the demand curve there down and to the right. It's always going to be that way. Okay. Now, on the flip of that, this isn't just about customers. We also have to talk about businesses. So when it comes to supply is, of course, from the business owner's perspective, as we've said before. Now, supply means production of goods and services by a business or a firm for sale to consumers, as you see here. Now, don't forget, the entrepreneur is trying to make a profit. They're trying to make money. Okay. So as they're trying to make money, the way that they try to make that money is they make the product for as cheap as possible and then sell it for as high as possible, which brings us to our next little thing that I want you to add in here with your notes and to remember is that price is not cost. Okay. Price and cost are two completely different things. Okay. Price is what you charge to sell something or for someone to buy something. Cost is what they pay, what the business pays to make the product. Okay. So this is on the front end. This is on the back end of the product. So just everybody understand that price and cost are two different things. Now we said businesses want that cost to be as high as possible, which is the opposite of what consumers are looking for. We said consumers are looking for low prices, businesses are looking for high prices. So just like with demand though, we get a supply schedule, a chart showing you how much is going to be supplied at each possible price point for that product. Now, you should go ahead and notice here, as the prices get higher, the amount supplied gets higher as well. Why? Because again, what does the business owner want? What does the business owner like? The business owners like this high price, which is why they're willing to make so much more at the high price than they are up here at the low price. Okay, this right here is what they want. This is where the business owners are happy. Problem is, this is where the customers are happy. We're going to have some conflict there, and that conflict is going to have to get worked out. That's where we start looking at trying to get the equilibrium. Okay. Now, just like with demand, that supply schedule, we take each of these different prices here and we plot them out. At $1, Starbucks is going to be willing to supply 3. So $1, provide 3. At $3, they're going to provide or supply 9 lattes. Okay. And then again, down here at 6, they're going to be willing to supply 18. So up here at a high price of $6, they're going to supply 18. Okay, sorry for my scribble there. But you see it, you can get the point. And again, reading the chart, reading the schedule is easy. Making sure you can read the graph, plotting those points out. At $6, the $6 line hits the supply curve here. Then we drop down to see how many, what the quantity is at that set price. Okay. So, quantity supplied, again, key word here, supplied at a specific price. So what you may want to even do here is put in parentheses here for you, but that you're looking at, again, a price point. When you talk about quantity supplied, you need to remember to think about price points. Okay, a price point. At the $6 price, what is your quantity supplied? At $3 price, what is your quantity supplied? Okay, that is key. And again, you need to know if this price changes from one price point to another, you're going to have a completely different quantity supplied because you're at a completely different price point. Okay. Again, these are the basic things to get down for right now before we get into the more complicated multi-level thinking that comes with other large-scale changes. So when the price changes, law of supply. When the price rises, quantity supplied rises. So because we're looking at price and quantity doing the same thing, that means they have a direct relationship here. Thus, they are synchronized. When this lady comes up, this lady comes up. Okay, they are synchronized. They synchronize their watches. Hey, before we go anywhere, make sure our watches are exactly the same, hitting the top of the hour at the same strike of the watch hand. Okay, so what that brings us to is kind of like we had our little saying for demand to the land. Here, that's going to bring us with supply to the sky. Okay, supply to the sky. Add that to your notes there. Remember that. Supply to the sky. Okay, because demand curve always goes down to the right. Supply curve is always going to go up to the right. And if we go back again, supply to the sky. Supply to the sky, because again, you don't have that little S here. It doesn't say supply anywhere. And if you are seen with a graph of a curve going up to the right here like this, you got to know that that's a supply curve, because supply to the sky, higher the price, higher the quantity supplied. Now, just a little review before we put supply and demand together. These two groups interact in the product market. Households and businesses are two separate entities that come together, interact in that product market. And remember, demand, when you hear demand or quantity demanded, you need to think of paying customers. Customers with money in their hand, walking in the store, ready to buy the product, ready to get whatever it is they want or need. When you hear supply or quantity supplied, you need to think of products on the shelf, whether it's headphones, whether it's clothes, whether it's books, whether it's shoes, whatever it may be. When you hear what is the quantity supplied of said product, you need to picture that number of products on the shelf. Okay. These two things work together to create the product market. Okay. Now, what does that look like for us when we put them together? Well, when they come together, they cross at what is the equilibrium price. Oh, it crosses at the equilibrium price. So, equilibrium being your keyword there. Okay. They are equal to each other. Quantity supply, quantity demanded are equal to each other. The other key word we look for here with this is balance. Okay. Balance is the key word. We want that balance between the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded. It's also known as the market clearing price, as you see here. Why? Because the market gets cleared out. Remember what we just said, supplied. When you hear the word supply, you need to think of products on the shelf. When you hear the word demand or quantity demanded, you need to think of paying customers. So if the number of products and the number of paying customers are equal to each other, then the market is clear. You don't have any more products to sell. You don't have any more customers with money trying to buy something. The market's cleared out. Everybody is happy at that point. Okay. Now, what does that look like for us when we graph them together? Here, you have your supply to the sky, your demand to the land, and of course, what you're really looking for here is this equilibrium price, $5, right here where they cross. Drop it down. There's your equilibrium quantity there. Okay, so according to this chart, if we were reading this chart, orange juice should be set at $5 because when setting orange juice at $5, you're going to have 5 things of orange juice, both demanded and supplied, so everybody's happy. You got the right amount there. Now, as we all know, it doesn't always work out that way. Finding that perfect equilibrium price is not always easy. Prices are always in flux. Prices are always changing. Trying to find that perfect equilibrium price. Nobody knows what that perfect equilibrium price is. A lot of times price can be set too high or price can be set too low. And then when you don't get the results you were expecting, you have to adjust it, either raise the price or lower the price to try and get to whatever that equilibrium may be. Okay, so that's what brings us to our next thing of what happens when the price is set too high. And when that price is set too high, you get what is known as a surplus. Okay, and you can see that surplus is right here. All this little area here within this upside down triangle. Because your surplus, and I hope you see this visually, it is the difference between here and here. Okay, this is your quantity demanded at that price. This is your quantity supplied at that price. There's a difference between those two. You have a whole lot more supply, a whole lot more products on the shelf than you have paying customers coming in to buy it. Okay, which means you have a surplus. You have a whole bunch of extra product sitting on the shelf. How much? The difference between this number and this number. Okay, now notice, I'm going to change my color up here a little bit so you can see this. But if this price is too high, if I asked you right now, if you were sitting in the class and sitting right in front of me, I would ask you, well, if the price is too high, and you got a bunch of extra products sitting around, what do you do? And your answer would be, you lower the price. So if we drop the price to say here, okay, great. Well, now the gap is not as bad, but we still have more supply than we have demand. But we have reduced the amount of that surplus. Okay, so now we're just looking at a surplus of all of this right here. So all of this that's got blue is now just our surplus. Now we can also then turn around and if we drop the price again, we eliminate again even more of this surplus. But there's still that surplus there. The surplus is always going to be there until we get here to this magical spot that we call equilibrium. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to have a surplus. Okay. There's fancy terms, fancy drawings, but again, in real life, go to Old Navy, go to the clearance section, and all those clothes that are sitting back there on clearance. Go to Palmetto Moon, that whole back room they got back there. It's all clearance stuff. It's all surplus. It's all stuff that they supplied that you didn't have enough people to buy at the price that they put it out there for. The price was too high. Okay, so they have to drop that price to try and get rid of it. And as they drop that price, the supply becomes less, demand becomes more until they meet at equilibrium and you get rid of the products. Okay. Now, what happens when you set the price too low? Well, of course, it's the flip of that. Okay, the price is too low, and you're going to have a shortage. Okay, all of this here in this triangle is your shortage. It is the flip of what we just saw a second ago. You got your quantity demanded here, your quantity supplied here. Again, your demand is much higher than your supply, which means you got a whole lot more customers than you have product out there. So you don't have enough product to give to all the customers that are there to buy at that low price. Think about Black Friday, okay? So we'll put this in here. Think about Black Friday. On Black Friday, Walmart has all these special prices. TVs really cheap, computers really cheap, everything you want really cheap. Problem is, they don't give you enough of it. Everybody and their brother shows up for this cheap price, but they only got like 10 available. You got 100 people wanting that TV and only 10 available. You're going to have a shortage. That's why they only do it for so long. Now, in real life, what if something, if you set a price and you realize, it's too low, we should have had a higher price, then you can do that. You can raise that price. Okay. And again, you still have the gap between your demand here, your quantity demanded there, and your quantity supplied here, and you still got this shortage. But again, it minimizes. And you keep raising the price. You keep trying to make things work until eventually you get to equilibrium. Okay. Key thing is that's a shortage. If the price is too low, you're going to get a shortage. There's no way around it. The price is, well, coach, what if you set the price low and you sell out? Well, then you didn't have the price too low. Just because it's low doesn't mean it's too low. That's the key thing to look at there. Okay. Now, what happens when the government gets involved? Well, when the government gets involved, everybody gets crazy because Lord knows the government is going to do things their way, and it always doesn't work. Doesn't always work the way we want it to. So, what happens when the government gets involved? What happens when the government intervenes? Typically, things don't go the way they should. So, let's look at this. Standard, explain how the law of demand, law of prices, distribution, we talked about that before. Now, substandard G, explain and illustrate on a graph how prices set too high and too low create surpluses and shortages. Now, we've already talked about this. We just talked about surpluses and shortages. The key difference with this standard and what we're talking about here with government intervention is these terms here: price floors, price ceilings. Okay, these two things here are where the government gets involved. Okay, and the government gets involved. It's a completely different thing when a company says, "Hey, this price is too high, let's drop it. This price is too low, let's raise it. We'll get rid of that surplus, get rid of that shortage." But when the government gets involved and puts a price floor or a price ceiling in place, you can't get around that. That surplus and that shortage is going to happen and you can't get rid of it. If the government would step back out, take their hands off of it, and allow the market to fix itself, then things would work. But the government steps in and creates these surpluses and shortages through price floors. So let's see how that works. Okay. So remember, we said that we talked about this before when we talked about economic systems, and we said that most economies are mixed market economies, and they're there to help protect consumers. That's what they're doing. They're trying to help protect consumers, not to let businesses take advantage of them. Okay, and they do this by putting a limit on how high or low a price can be for a product. Okay, and those are called prices and price floors. Now, before we get into this, before we see what they look like, understand ceilings and floors are in reference to what the price is doing. Okay, so when you hear the word price ceiling and price floor, what is what it is in relation to the price. Okay, what it is in relation to the price. It is either a ceiling for the price or a floor for the price. Ceilings don't let you go any higher. Ceilings are above you. Ceilings don't let you go any higher. Floors don't let you go any lower. Now, we're not talking about where these things are located on the graph, but in what they are in relationship to where the price is trying to go. Okay, where in relation to where the price is trying to go. That's key. That's critical, because otherwise you're going to get yourself turned upside down. So when the government puts a cap on a price, okay, and we think about this, if the government puts a cap on the price, cap goes on top of you, right? Cap goes on your head. Cap is above you. So a price ceiling here is above the price, and it doesn't let the price go any higher. So if the price can't go any higher, that means that the price is too low. Too low. Okay. So if the price is too low, that's going to cause a shortage. We just talked about this. If the price is too low, too many people want it, we're going to run out of it. Examples of this: rent control, and here's your better one: disaster laws against price gouging. When things go wrong, hurricanes, tornadoes, everybody freaking out over coronavirus, and everybody wants to buy these things because they're in such demand. Think about it for a second. You know this. When things are in high demand, what should the price do? The price should go up. But if the government puts a cap on it, it can't go up. And again, they're trying to protect the consumers. We don't want these businesses jacking the prices up on people and taking advantage of people. But are they taking advantage of them if that's what the market calls for? Well, it's a disaster. These people are being hurt. These people are just trying to get by. Understood completely. But the market calls for the price to go up because the demand increased. Okay? Because there's so much demand for it, the price should go up. But the government says, no, you can't bring that price up. So let's see what that looks like on the chart. Okay? So, again, the price is down here, the price is artificial, is too low, and the price should be going up. Price should be trying to get up to this, as we keep saying, this magical spot called equilibrium. But the price can't go any higher. Why? Because that ceiling is there. The ceiling is blocking the price from going up the way it's supposed to, which leads to this shortage that we have here. Okay? We have more demand for the product at this low price than we have supply. Okay? What I want you to picture with this right here is anytime it is snowed, anytime it is ice, or anything like that, and people panic and go to Kroger or to Ingles or to Walmart to get their stuff. They can't get it because everybody else that's gotten there before them has bought it out. Why? Because everybody wants it. There's not that much supply, and you wind up with a shortage. There's not enough to meet the demand for it, so you got a bunch of empty shelves. That's what the shortage tells you, empty shelves, okay? Now, if they were raise that price up, maybe people don't buy as much. Maybe people walk in and go, oh, at that price, I'm only going to buy 2 instead of buying 10, which leaves the other 8 for somebody else to come back and buy later. Okay, raising that price helps out. But if trying to protect the consumer and keep prices low, you're going to wind up with a shortage. That's what happens. You can't get around it.